Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. You know, it's often been said that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Okay, so what should we be eating? I wrestle with this all the time. I pretty much eat the same thing for breakfast. One of two things. I rotate them. I've been eating pretty much the same thing for years. I'm afraid to hear what she's going to say about my menu choices, if you will, because she is somebody that specializes in lifestyle modification that addresses the unique wellness concerns of lots of people, specifically retired military women and their families. And it's so great to have her back here. Coach Lorraine joins us on the program. Hi, Lorraine. How are you?
Hello, Steve. Good morning. I'm doing great. And yourself?
I am very good. I am intrigued to hear what we're going to talk about today when it comes to the optimal breakfast. I have ideas. I don't even know where to start with this because we have this misconception as kids. All right, it's cereal. So you pound the sugary cereal with milk and you think that's okay. You become an adult. Maybe you're still eating cereal. You try different things. But where do we start with this whole breakfast thing?
Well, the first place to start is recognize that breakfast is actually not necessarily the meal that you eat first thing in the morning, but breakfast is breaking your fast. And what that means is your first meal after a period of fasting, such as overnight. So if your last meal the night before was whether it's 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, you should, of course, not eat close to when you're going to bed. Give yourself at least 2 or 3 hours. Your next meal could be 8, could be 10, could be 16, could be 20 hours later. So that very first meal that you have breaks your fast when your body was in a state of rest and repair, and it becomes very important what you introduce into your system to kick off your metabolic condition at that time.
Do you need to eat breakfast?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. Because once again, you don't need, one of the things I try to encourage my clients, the people I work with, to do is to try to do things intuitively. And that's something that I think the majority of us haven't fallen off. Because we tend to eat because this is the schedule that we live by, or the timer that we live by. And we don't eat because we feel hungry. Listen to those intuitive, whether your satiation feelings. Are you truly hungry when we eat our typical, what the norm is, cereal or oatmeal of those or bagels? Are we truly hungry when we do that? So we should be starting our day off maybe with a glass of water to get ourselves rehydrated so that we know and can identify what's going in our system. So you do need to eat. Of course, there's no way of not eating a first meal to break the fast. Mm-hmm. And the question is, what should you eat to break that fast? And of course, things we've spoken about over the number of weeks and things you hear from a lot of folks is that anything high carb is not the best choices for a meal to break your fast.
So can I share what I eat and see how that aligns with you? Before you explain what we should be eating, let's have you pick me apart and see how we do with that. What do you think?
All right, let's go ahead.
Okay. I typically eat turkey meatballs for breakfast. Usually 3, that they call it a serving. Going by memory here, it's about 17 grams of protein, very low carb content. I'll usually add just a tablespoon or 2 of marinara sauce just to give it some flavor. I'll add some garlic. I hear garlic is good for you. I'll heat that up in the microwave, and then I'll usually have half a light whole wheat or grain English muffin, just to add some carbs and just a touch of butter, just hardly even noticeable, just adds a little bit of moisture to it. That's my average breakfast. And then sometimes I'll change it up and I'll have 2 or 3 egg bites, which are just essentially eggs with maybe some vegetables in there. If I have the egg bites, I don't have the other. It's one of those 2 meals. So let me know what you think about that.
Steve, I would sit down and dine with you any day.
Oh!
Here's my thought with that one. In particular, as we age, we need to prioritize protein. And your selection with turkey turkey meatballs and the egg bites are higher in protein than it would be having just a basic egg sandwich, for example. But even though eggs are pretty good, and your carb count is actually pretty low. So unless you have concerns with insulin resistance or something of that kind, your breakfast choices are actually ideal.
Okay. Wow. And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you the turkey meatballs. It's been probably almost 10 years I've been eating the same exact thing. I don't get tired of them because I love a meat choice, and I feel that they're lower in fat and healthy, and they're fresh, by the way. Sometimes they're, I get them frozen, but more times than not, I'll find the fresh ones. They're already pre-made, pre-formed. I don't have to, get turkey, chopped meat and make them. All right. Well, you know what? I'm happy, Coach Lorraine, to hear that at least breakfast I haven't derailed. The rest of the day, not so much.
The only other thing, I'd put on more butter on my English muffin than you do. So that's the only difference.
Well, you know what? Interesting you bring that up because back in the day, they would say, well, butter's bad for you. Not good, not good. And then everybody gravitated over to the butter substitutes. Like, I can't believe it's not butter, or what are some of the margarine spreads, whatever they are. And now they've gravitated back to butter, and it was probably all a marketing ploy. Butter's actually okay for you, in my understanding, because we need some fat in our diets, and you can get it from that. So it's not that bad, right?
That is correct. We actually need more fat than we realize it. And butter is one of the healthier fats. Of course, anything else, and especially for women. Women thrive on butter because it helps with our cognitive abilities. It helps with our hormones because our estrogen is structured around fats with our cholesterol within our body. So we need that healthy fat to balance both our estrogen and even our testosterone. Without those healthy fats, our testosterone and estrogen resources are going to be depleted, and that's not a healthy mix.
So let's talk about that for a moment. You said cholesterol. There's another thing. Back in the day, you say the word cholesterol, and people freak out and then and obviously you need to have a good cholesterol level in your body. But when you read the package, I picked up something the other day and it said daily cholesterol percentage was about 22%. I wasn't super concerned, but can we break down the myths and the facts about cholesterol in our diet, looking at the ingredient panel?
I don't think so. Because there's so many variables, and so many people are in different states. The condition of our body in different states: male, female, older, younger.
Okay.
And some people are hypercholesterol, hyperinsulinemia, and different things because of our genetics. So it's a challenge to kind of look at things on a label and kind of monitor our cholesterol that way.
All right. So can I jump in here just with all respect? Is it okay to look at the label and see a cholesterol level and then want to, let's say if I make two choices of a meal, go for the lower cholesterol? Is it important to keep your cholesterol lower in your diet?
In your diet. So the question is whether it's good or bad cholesterol. What's the source of the cholesterol? Is it saturated fats? Is it polyunsaturated fats? So those are the things to consider. So when it comes to fats, you want to stay away from the seed oils, because I look more at the ingredients and not so much concerned with what's written, the breakdown of the cholesterol itself. So the ingredient choice is what we should more focus on, making sure there's no seed oil, corn oil, corn syrup, things of those nature. Those are the things you need to stay away. Even soy these days, because soy is not what it used to be. So I've kind of steered away from as much soy as I possibly can, but not that I won't have some things with soy products in it. So you have to look at the ingredient choices are what's more important, and like with your turkey meatball choices, look for as much whole food as you possibly can, and as little processed food.
Okay, so now I'm getting a better view of this. It really depends on where the cholesterol comes from.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Learning a lot here. So Give us some examples. I gave an example, and I'm happy I I passed the Coach Lorraine test. Some other choices of what would be a reasonable breakfast.
So a reasonable breakfast, like I said, you're looking at anything with high protein. So eggs is always a good choice. I love leftovers, so eating the meat from your dinner the night before, it's not a bad choice either. I'm trying to think. You're stuck with your thought. I'm an egg bite eater myself, so those are always my go-to. What I had for my breakfast this morning it's actually a Caribbean, Jamaican food. It's ackee and codfish. Ackee is actually high in fat. Codfish adds the protein to it. And also, you think of things that are, I don't do as much cereal as I used to do because I'm not as active as I used to be either. So I know my body's not going to burn those things off in a short term. I eat a lot of organ meat. So liver, kidney, things of that nature, because it's always good to consume the animal from nose to tail as much as you can. My daughter, she enjoys what they call the chicken gizzards, which is it's actually the chicken stomach in a sense, and that makes a good source because a lot of it's nutrient dense, and anything that's nutrient dense is appropriate for primal health. So for those people for real quick eats, even though cold cuts are not necessarily the optimal item, but cold cuts, those that are minimally treated, can be a great substitute for your morning meal. So the objective is to keep it low carb, and if you do introduce carb, maybe add some fiber. Like fresh fruits are good for you as opposed to fruit juice. I rarely drink orange juice anymore, and if I do drink orange juice, it's going to be later in the day and not a drink in the morning because that's high in sugar. Even though it's fruits, it's still sugar. And so when it comes to fruits, stick with the berries. Berries are low on the glycemic index and is more appropriate. Bananas, that's depending on what you combine your banana with, having a banana may or may not be suitable. Having a banana after a workout is ideal, but not necessarily for your first meal unless you're combining it with other things. So the thing is, from my perspective, if you're trying to burn fat or maintain for one reason or the other, anything low carb, high fat, high protein, moderate fat is the way to go.
We think alike, apparently, because I'm the same exact way. Orange juice, I rarely have it. Sure, the vitamin C is great. Love the flavor, especially when it's fresh squeezed. Love the pulp even. But it's got a lot of sugar, natural sugar, so that's good. And I've often heard that bananas are the fruit with the highest glycemic index, meaning they've got the most sugar. And the sugar will vary in them from not so ripe to overly ripe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of stay away from them as well. The only time I eat a banana, if I make a smoothie, I'll throw half of one in there, just sweeten it up and just give it that banana flavor. Yeah, but I'm kind of on your page with all of that.
Yeah. And with that smoothie, like I said, if you're adding in adding the dairy, because whole milk is is less sugar, higher in protein, so that's a good combination. So what you put in your smoothie is important. I know I encourage my family to add other vegetable, adding a spinach or a little bit of spinach or kale or some other greens to your smoothie so that you're having that additional fiber and balancing things out. So it's all about the combination, creating that balance. There's nothing unless you have a condition that you have to stay away from something, there's nothing to say that you can't incorporate things into your diet, but just be mindful of how your body adapts or takes to things.
And why you're doing it. Instead of just opening up the cabinet, grabbing the cereal, throwing some milk in the bowl and eating it. All right. It's okay for a treat. Sometimes I'll pass by. I need a little fix of something. I'll open up a cereal box, put a hand in there, grab a handful of whatever. Usually the more ones that contain, at least nuts and fruits and things like that. So I think there's a place for cereal. What other thoughts you have on the perfect breakfast or the true meaning of breakfast?
So the other one thing is when it comes to dairy. Now I'm lactose intolerant, so my body doesn't do well with yogurt or cottage cheese, but I generally love to having cottage cheese and a little bit of fruit with it. So, but those are good components for meal break, to break your fast. Along those lines, yogurt, sour. If you have something with sour cream and things of that nature. But the biggest thing is listening to your body's cues and trying to be more intuitive with the way in which you eat, as opposed to just eating things because that's the schedule that you grew up on. Be more mindful. Keep the things that you shouldn't eat out of the house as best as you can, so you're not reaching for those quick fixes. And plan your meals out throughout the week, if you hopefully can.
So when we're breaking that fast, is there an amount of food that we should be eating, in terms of size, calorie, or is it just need to eat something? It's not about eating a bigger meal.
So when you're looking at the balance, the more fat or protein that you're eating in your meal, then the less of it you would have to eat. The more carbs you're eating, it's going to burn the carbs off a lot quicker, because that's what your body does, is burns and gets those carbs either out of your bloodstream or stuff it into your fat cells quickly. So those things will burn off rapidly. So depending on what you're eating, that's going to determine the quantity. Of course, if you're getting ready to start your day, you don't want to overstuff yourself because your body may end up going into that lethargic and you won't be able to function very well. So you just want enough to kind of keep you till the next meal. So if you know your next meal is going to be lunchtime, then you just need to be moderate. I try to avoid the snacking in between, but if snacking works for you, then of course you can have a smaller portion breakfast. But you don't want to overload the system. There are people who do adhere to the one meal a day, and for those folks, they tend to eat the one meal later in the day so they can take a nap after they have that large one meal, because they're still trying to meet the calorie needs of their body, but being mindful of the nutritional density of the food that they're taking. So, depends on the time of day, what your body needs, and when you're going to have your next meal.
What about the occasional, hey, let's have a big Sunday breakfast. Let's go somewhere. Let's get French toast. Let's get bacon or sausage. Let's have that coffee. Let's have that orange juice. Occasionally, is that such a bad thing to do?
That's the thing I do on a regular basis with my kids. And what's helpful when you do that is scheduling a walk after that meal.
Interesting you should say that. There was research that came out recently that said if you take a 15-minute walk after each meal, you are doing such justice to your body. You don't even realize how good it is. Every meal, 15-minute walk.
Yep. And what that does is it burns whatever reserves you have going on. So then now it allows this new meal to kind of, fit in where you burned off your stores.
It's funny, the perception of food that we have. So when I embark on that big breakfast, occasionally, I'll get French toast. So my thinking is, well, all right, I could just have pancakes. Let's be honest. It's mostly carbs. So I'm going to have that French toast, and, it's made with some egg, and, of course, it's got bread, and, there's carbs in there, but at least I'm getting some protein. I thought that contained way more protein than it actually does. It does not. Big surprise.
Yeah. And one of the things that when you are having a high-carb meal, just pair it with the right things. Like always have the butter or the cream cheese with the bagel. Having your carbs naked, as they say, goes against your the ability for your body to consume it in the best way. So always have your carbs with clothes on. Your rice with gravy, or with your salads, because your salads are with carrots and stuff. Make sure it has a little olive oil and things of that nature. And sometimes just having that olive oil sprinkled on your food. You know how the Italians, when they eat their bread, when they break the bread and they dip it in the... It's because eating it naked, it'll burn faster. It gets into your bloodstream. Your insulin gets driven up, and you don't want it to be in that high number for a long period of time. But when you incorporate fat or fiber into with the carbs, it creates that balance, and it actually slows down the body converting the carbohydrates into glucose to overwhelm the bloodstream.
You know how many people are hearing that and saying, Coach Lorraine, thank you so much. Woo, woo. Because, yeah, how many people have a bagel with a schmear, if you will, of some, cream cheese or whatever it might be? I don't know if anybody eats a bagel without anything on it.
Well, that's true. But if you do bagel with butter, you're not putting much. Usually it's not much butter on the bagel compared to cream cheese, for example. That's a good example.
And it's kind of funny that I said that, before when I have the English muffin, I just put a little bit on there. Now I'm hearing from you, put a little bit more on, and don't feel guilty about it because it's actually a good thing overall.
Yep.
Wow. A lot of insight here on breakfast where, a lot of things we believed were one way is actually the other way if you want to stay healthy. And that's what you do, helping people do that. How do we find you, Lorraine?
You can find me, the best way to find me is on my website. So my website, which is lorrainecuff.com. I also have a YouTube channel, and there's a lot of helpful information, or you can book a schedule with me that way.
How about one final thought on breakfast? If you wanted to suggest a breakfast to somebody, everybody's got different tastes. Let's say not including seafood. What would you suggest they eat?
My favorite breakfast, so in the next couple of weeks I'll be going to visit my mom. My parents' anniversary coming up. I don't want her to be by herself. Mm-hmm. And a favorite breakfast that my mother would cook for me is the local greens. It's called callaloo, similar to spinach, but it's more hearty. So she'll prepare the callaloo, sometimes with codfish, and we'll eat it with some green bananas, boiled green bananas. So the carb content is somewhat high, but it's not as much sugar. So it'll be boiled bananas, and with yam, that's another ground, it's a resistant starch, so it creates a better balance in your diet.
I've always wondered what callaloo was. Seriously, I didn't know whether it was a type of fish. I knew it was from the Caribbean, but didn't know that it was similar to spinach. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to put that on my radar. I love spinach, so I'm probably going to love callaloo.
Yes, I'm sure you would.
Wow. Lorraine, always great talking with you. Love the information and the insight, and looking forward next time we get together.
All right, Steve. You have a good one.
You too. We'll be right back.